disappear.
Yeah, and normally you're right. They are at the bottom, but they're not even there. But I haven't been on Teams for a week.
Good morning, Chair Volendroff, members Garrett, staff, and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to our board caucus meeting, the first one for 2025, January 7th. Just a couple comments before we jump in here. I just wanted to, again, welcome you to our first board caucus of 2025. This is my first meeting as board chair, and so please bear with me. I'm also feeling a little under the weather, so I apologize for not being there in person, and also, secondly, for a little congestion here, but I guess that's how I'm going to welcome in 2025. I also wanted to just acknowledge my schedule. My schedule is going to be one in which I come to the office 1 day a week, and that's primarily going to be Wednesday. So I only tell you that because if you're wanting time on my calendar and you want that to be in person, please let Gretchen know. And she knows this as well, that Wednesdays would be the best time to schedule an in-person meeting with me. I also wanted to acknowledge that I started my day today at 8:30 this morning, attending the licensing division year in review from 2024. And it was great. It was so great to sit and hear the accomplishments of the licensing unit and to learn more about the work that the licensing division does. When you hear just the title, it sounds like, okay, they issue licenses. And that is but a small part of all the overall work they do. So it was really great to sit and hear all of their accomplishments. Today on the agenda, we have an update from the LCB research team on a dashboard that they've been working on for a while. And I just want to share with you, so I've been on the board for 2 years now, and in my application and interview process to originally be appointed to the board, I talked about the development of a dashboard. I talked about the value of that. And our LCB research team has really taken that and ran with it. And so I'm delighted to have them present to us today and share some work that they've done on the development of a dashboard, and what I hope is just the beginning of a robust set of data that we can make available to the public and for internally as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sarah Oki and Dr. Nick Golotsky, who's going to do our presentation today. So thank you very much for being here this morning.
Great, thank you. And hello, Happy New Year to everyone. And hello, Chair Volendroff and Member Garrett. Wonderful to be here today. Let me share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that. If not, please tell me now. You're not able to see your screen. Let me bring this over. Okay. So today, Dr. Nick Golotsky and I will be presenting updates on our agency-wide public-facing dashboard initiative, which is being spearheaded by the research program. So first, I will provide a high-level overview of this initiative altogether, and then Nick will go into more details about how to use the 2 dashboards that are live now, and then more dashboards as they continue to go live in the upcoming year. And he will also give more detail about what the current dashboards we have available are. If anyone has questions, feel free to interrupt throughout this. So LCB's goal is to create foundational data dashboards to be displayed on our website. And when we say dashboard, what we mean is visualizing data on a platform that has interactive features and are accessible to the public. And when we say foundational, we mean that at this stage, we will only be building dashboards using data that contain 4 criteria. So 1, highly feasible, where dashboards will only use data that are currently gathered and reported in some way. So no new data processes are needed. 2, high value, where dashboards summarize data that are frequently requested. 3, high quality, where only data that is reliable and valid will be used, data that we feel really confident in. And then 4, limited in nature, meaning data will be refreshed no more than once per quarter and is focused on really high level and overarching insights. So nothing like extensive raw or highly technical data. And now these criteria may change as we continue to build up these dashboards, but what we're really currently working on and emphasizing right now is creating a strong base or foundation prior to building out more advanced versions. So the goal of having foundational dashboards is supported by our 2024 to 2029 strategic plan. With respect to goal 1, dashboards support public health and safety by transforming complex data into really easily digestible formats, which will then allow us to understand trends better, develop calls to action, and inform decision making. With respect to goal 2, dashboards will allow LCB to be more responsive to frequently requested information and provide more accessibility on the data we do have. And then finally, we are designing dashboards to be accessible and understandable to non-technical audiences, which promote our culture of trust and belonging. So over the past year, there have been many steps made towards this initiative. So in June, we started with several members of LCB being involved in a Power BI training, which is the platform that we're currently using to build out dashboards. In July, foundational dashboards were placed on our strategic plan for the current fiscal year and assigned to the research program to lead. In August, the research program met with leadership to discuss our plan of action for leading this initiative. In September, we began our internal dashboard work group meeting, which is incredibly valuable and consists of analysts and other teams agency-wide. So they're hugely important in this. In October, we spent time discussing the feasibility of dashboards, what barriers might exist, and our IT was really instrumental in this process for helping us to understand how to expect different barriers and where to mitigate these barriers in the future. In November, we started developing standard operating procedures as to how to develop and finalize and improve dashboards that will be public facing. And then in December, we were able to release our first 2 dashboards. So our first 2 dashboards can be found on our webpage. So you can go to lcb.wa.gov/research/dashboards. You can find it if you hover over the resources section on the home page for dashboards. It's also linked on our home research program webpage as well. Once you're on our dashboards homepage, you will see our dashboard development plan up at the top, and then instructions in both written and then soon to be video format on how to interact with the dashboards. And then you will see what available dashboards we have. So currently we have 2, both focused on cannabis, and Nick will explain more about that in a second. And as I mentioned previously, the agency-wide dashboard work group is actively working to continue to build out this page, focused on information that meets those 4 criteria we just outlined. So before I hand over the mic to Nick, I wanted to quickly remind everyone that this is a very large and extensive, very complex project. We are at the very beginning, and we will be sharing out more dashboards over the course of the next year. Currently, we're aware that we only have cannabis dashboards, and we are working on liquor and tobacco and upcoming dashboards as well. Second, and importantly, although the research program has been coordinating this effort and leading this presentation today, dashboards could not be developed without the support from executive leadership, our dashboard work group, our data governance committee, our communications team, our data analysts and subject matter experts, and our IT. They play such a valuable role in this process, and I feel so honored to have all of them on board with this project. So, for example, our financial analyst, Colin O'Neill, was a critical aspect in the dedicated cannabis account dashboard. He was such a subject matter expert, provided data, answered all of our questions as the dashboard was being built. Incredibly an instrumental part of that dashboard and of this process. Third, we value quality and are intentionally moving slowly. We want to be confident in all of the dashboards that we publish on our website. This is a new process for LCB. We're learning together. We're focused on foundational data. We're not going to be able to make every insight available. Right now, we're focused again on data that we collect and own, frequently requested data, and overarching insights. And then finally, changes will likely occur to this process. For example, our initiatives might change with a dashboard bill from the legislature or our ongoing systems modernization project. Again, we're being focused on flexibility, which is another reason why we're starting slow to begin that, to have that really strong foundational base. Okay, so with that, I will hand it over to Nick, who will explain more in detail our 2 dashboards we currently have available.
Thanks, Sarah. Morning, Chair
Morning.
Vollendroff and Member Garrett. Hopefully you can see my screen okay.
See it good. Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. So I'm excited to present 2 data dashboards that were recently posted on our website. I'm going to be presenting the information in the dashboard as well as giving you kind of a quick walkthrough of how to use some of the features of the dashboard. The dashboards do seem to work best when viewed on a desktop or tablet compared to mobile. So this first dashboard has data from the International Cannabis Policy Study on Washington State residents. ICPS is an annual survey conducted by researchers at the University of Waterloo focused on cannabis policy and public health. LCB supports this research, and in return, they conduct a representative sample of Washington's population. The dashboard has 6 pages. The first is the overview page that you see here, followed by pages containing select findings from the 2023 survey. The first 4 have results for only past year cannabis users, where the last 2 have results for the full sample unless otherwise noted. So to make the dashboard go full screen, you have to go down here to the right to open a new window. And then from here, you can go down to the right again and open in full screen. On all of the pages that have data visualizations, there's an information button here in the top right-hand corner. And by clicking it, you'll pull up a window that has information more specific to the page that you're on, as well as important notes and definitions. And this is true for this dashboard as well as the next one that I'll be presenting. Here along the left, there are filters you can use to look at certain subgroups of interest. So say that you're interested in certain age ranges, you can use the filter. And then if you want to make multiple selections, you can just hold down Control on PC or Command on a Mac, and you can select multiple. You can also click directly on parts of a visual. So say that we're interested in daily or near daily cannabis users, we could click right on this slice of the pie chart, and then everything else on the page will change to reflect that choice. To clear the filters, you can click on the same part of the visual or on the white space around it. And there's also a button here to clear all the filters. So this first page has general characteristics of past year users from the ICPS survey. This includes the average age of first cannabis use, money spent on cannabis in the past month, cannabis use frequency, medical versus recreational use, and products used in the past year. And flowers was the most commonly reported product used. This next page has information on the cannabinoid content of products that participants used. First, they were asked if they know the THC or CBD content of the flower, edibles, or concentrates that they used last. And if they answered yes, they were followed up with questions about how much, either in the percent in the case of flower and concentrates, or in milligrams for edibles. Just keep in mind that this is self-report data, so an average of 35% THC is actually really quite high for flower. And finally, down here, we also have past year flavored vape use. The most commonly reported flavor of vapes used was fruit flavored vapes. Next, we have reasons for and consequences of use. So the most commonly reported reasons for cannabis use were to reduce stress or relax, or to improve sleep. Most participants did not have a health professional recommendation to use cannabis. And in terms of consequences, participants were asked if others had ever expressed concern about their use, if they had ever tried and failed to reduce their use, if they've ever experienced health, social, legal, or financial problems as a result of their cannabis use, or if they failed to do what is normally expected of them due to cannabis use. And finally, we have adverse reactions to cannabis that were reported in the past year, the most common of which was panic reactions. So once again, these last two pages have information from the full sample unless it's otherwise noted in the title of the figure. So this first page focuses on the ease of access to retail stores, including the average time it takes to get to the nearest retail store, the ease of telling whether a retail store is legal or not. This map has information on the perceived ease of buying cannabis from a retail store by county. So for this question, participants were asked on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being very easy and represented in lighter green, to 5, which was very difficult and represented in darker green. However, the county with the highest average difficulty rating was Grant County, with an average of only about 2.2 out of 5. So it does seem that it's relatively easy for participants to purchase cannabis from a retail store. Over half of participants had visited a legal retail store in the past year. And among past year users, retail stores were the most common source of cannabis, followed by family members or friends. Finally, as a counter to that last slide.
Board member Garrett has a question. Nick, you want to go ahead, Ollie?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, you went back to the slide. Just a curiosity question, and this when you look at the ease of buying from a retail store, and you look at those areas that are gray and possibly lighter green, would that tell someone looking at this that if you are getting a license and trying to get into the industry, that those would be a better area to look at?
Yeah, so one quick thing that I forgot to mention is that because this is survey data and we wanted to protect anonymity, any figure that had a count of less than 10 is suppressed. So these gray counties are ones that less than 10 people from that county filled out the survey. So we're actually not presenting data from those counties just to protect individuals from there. But individuals in the industry could use this as a way of indicating which counties may need greater access to a retail store if they're interested in opening one.
Okay, thank you.
So the final page of the dashboard is on perceptions of the illegal market. Participants were asked about the perceived quality and safety of legal compared to illegal cannabis, and excluding those who say that they didn't know, a majority of participants said that legal is both higher quality and safer to use compared to illegal cannabis. Similar to the map on the last page, there's perceived ease of buying cannabis from an illegal store. This was answered in the same way. And once again, the county with the highest average difficulty rating was Grant, this time at about 3.5 out of 5. So slightly more difficult than buying cannabis from a legal source. And finally, participants were asked about their reasons for buying cannabis from outside of the legal market, and the most common responses were that legal had higher prices or were less convenient than illegal sources. So this was the dashboard on ICPS. Moving on to the dedicated cannabis account dashboard. So this dashboard has information on the revenue, expenditures, and distributions from the dedicated cannabis account, and it was created in response to a JLARC report recommending that LCB create a web page with all of this information in a single location. Some parts of this are in the annual fiscal report as well as the frequently listed pages, but this is a more accessible and just a place to find all of this information in one source. We collaborated with, like Sarah mentioned, individuals in the finance division, particularly Colin O'Neill, to create the dashboard. They were responsible for providing and reconciling the data, as well as providing their expertise on the subject. This dashboard has 5 pages. The first page is on revenue going into the dedicated cannabis account. We have total revenue, and this is collapsed across all years, so this is since 2014, but we also have revenue by fiscal year and by source. One of the main reasons for creating this dashboard was to highlight that 99% of the revenue going into the dedicated cannabis account comes from the cannabis excise tax collected from cannabis sales throughout the state. Next, we have an overview of expenditures and distributions. Funds from the dedicated cannabis account go towards the basic health account, where funds are spent on healthcare costs for children enrolled in Medicaid, as well as the state general fund, state agencies, and local governments. And while we don't have further details on the funds that go to the basic health account or state general fund, the next 2 pages of the dashboard will break down distributions to state agencies and local governments further.
Oh, great.
So here are expenditures made by state agency. Again, here is the amount that state agencies have received. Again, this is collapsed across years, but there is a filter here on the left if you'd like to filter by a specific fiscal year. You can also, there's also a filter for agencies, or you can click directly on the table. Say if you're interested in the healthcare authority, you can see how much money that the healthcare authority has received from the dedicated cannabis account by year. We also have allotments, which is the amount that is set aside by the state legislature for these agencies compared to the amount that they actually ended up spending from that allotment. And finally, the last page here is on distributions to local governments. Part of this distribution comes from the portion of the excise tax that these local governments collect through cannabis sales, while the other part comes through their share of the population in counties that allow cannabis businesses to operate. Each local government decides how to spend its own funds. And here you can see the amounts that are distributed to county governments or that have businesses operating in unincorporated areas, or to cities and towns, which have businesses operating in incorporated areas. The map over here shows the relative distribution by county. And I'd just like to point out that if you hover over it, this total distribution amount here is the amount that was distributed to the county government as well as to the cities and towns within that county. So if I were to click on this part of the map here, it will filter the lists to show this is the amount that the King County government received, as well as the amounts that all of the cities within King County received.
Mm.
And those that received $0 are jurisdictions that have a ban or moratorium on cannabis sales. So as long as a city or town or county allows cannabis businesses to operate, they will receive that distribution from the population, even if they don't happen to have a retail store operating within the area. They just then wouldn't receive any distribution from cannabis sales because they aren't generating any of the excise tax. Jim,
I have a quick question just related to that zero amount in the towns and cities. So that zero amount is exclusively for that reason. There's no other reason that would be zero in this particular column?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then at the bottom here, go ahead, Ollie. Sorry.
And at the same time, going back to this, I think this would be good data to use and put in those ban and moratoriums counties and cities or municipalities face to see where they're missing out on revenue.
Yeah, I agree. And Nick, is there a way to actually project what that amount would be had there not been a moratorium? I don't know how this is actually determined.
I don't believe that there would be. I see that Colin has his hand raised, and as the financial expert, he might have some information for us.
Great, thank you. Colin, go ahead.
Because the money from sales is apportioned across the cities that allow the sales, it'd be really tricky to go back and figure out, for example, if you assume that Uniqlo um, is assigned a store, but they don't allow sales, you'd have to go back and project how many sales they actually had in order to figure out what percentage of the sales in the state they get. So, for example, I'm just going to throw this out. If Uniqlo had 10% of the sales in the state, they get 10% of the revenue that's given on the basis of sales. They don't get money. It's not directly tied to sales. It's a percentage of sales, right?
Uh-huh.
So I guess the short of it is not really, because you'd have to actually come up with fake sales in order to figure that out.
Would there not be a way to take, for example, Federal Way and the population of Federal Way, and then look at King County and the total number of sales, and then find a like population in King County as Federal Way, and at least say that there's some correlation, or is there just no way? Would that be totally inaccurate?
I guess you would have to assume that, for like in your example, that Uniqlo has the same amount of population that in Federal Way that chooses to so if Federal Way and Uniqlo have the same population, then you could kind of put in a fake sale, but it wouldn't be in relation to King County statewide.
Okay.
So so it would be Uniqlo, if they had 10% of the sales statewide, they get 10% of the revenue that's set aside for um, distribution based on sales. So
Right. So Jim,
it'd be really, really tricky, and there'd be a lot of assumptions going
and
along with that.
I think it's a better picture for them seeing the zero that they could probably figure out themselves, knowing who they are and what city and county they're in, and looking at this
Yeah.
and see for themselves where they're missing out on something. So I just think just having this data, this dashboard showing this is great.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. The other thing, I mean, when I look at this, I always wonder, where are the towns and cities that have moratoriums? And maybe there's a place where I can go and get that, but here's yet another place that shows exactly where there are bans and moratoriums.
I would Aaron
go ahead.
Hansen manages the cannabis distributions. So if you ever want to know what he's showing as the current list of moratoriums and bans, he monitors that. So you could always go to him and get that list.
Great. Thank you, Colin. And thanks for jumping in here and answering some of our questions.
You're welcome.
Okay,
just to
Nick.
that last point of yours, Jim, you could filter the distributions by amount, so that way you can see all of the cities that have $0 distributions. And some might also be interesting because you can see the change over time. I can't think of a city off the top of my head, but if you see one that had a ban or moratorium earlier on and then lifted it, you would be able to see that here in the distribution by fiscal year.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you for having me here to present. That was everything with the dashboards.
Great, thank you. Sarah, anything else you want to add?
No, again, I just want to say thank you Nick has been an incredible, has been so incredible building these dashboards and leading the dashboard work group, and everyone who has joined and participated and helped with us getting this goal of developing dashboards and continuing to develop dashboards to have more transparent data. It's been wonderful. So looking forward to what the next year brings.
Terrific. Well, just a couple of comments. Board Member Garrett, do you have anything you want to add before I jump into a few comments?
No, I just want to say, Sarah, this is great, and your team, this is great data, great information to see. Great, good job. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll second that. I'm just thrilled that we have this. And I am especially thrilled to hear you guys talk about this from being in its infancy in many ways, and that we have more possibilities. And I look forward to hearing from people. And I guess that gets to a question. If we have people who go and explore these and they have feedback or questions, where do people reach out to? Do they just reach out directly, or just talk a little bit about how we anticipate feedback coming in?
Yeah, so we are also in the process of gathering feedback, and again, we're focused on what data is currently out there with like frequently requested lists, but we are interested in hearing what would be important and helpful for people to have on dashboards from a wide variety of stakeholders. We have our email address on each dashboard. You can also contact us, email us at lcbresearch@lcb.wa.gov. And feel free to ask us questions. Depending on the dashboard, we may redirect that question to the subject matter experts, depending on what that question is. But we're interested in questions, comments, and potential other ideas as well. So use that email.
Terrific. Thank you. You've talked about this being in its infancy, and I'm wondering if you can give us some high-level examples of where the future of the dashboards lie. Are there other dashboards? You mentioned alcohol and tobacco, but just in general, talk about like the goals of these dashboards over the next year or so, if you could.
Yes, so one thing that we're currently again spending a lot of time discussing where our data is sourced, how we pull data from different divisions, and then how to aggregate that data across time to have those really robust, high-level insights. We're looking at a few different dashboards right now. One that has been a consistent comment of how important would be involves compliance checks for alcohol, for cannabis, for tobacco. So we're looking into how we might be able to display that data. Another topic is license types and how license types change and evolve across time. I will say that one of our considerations in building out dashboards also depends on our system modernization project, since we have a lot of movement with how data is being stored, and our data governance committee is coming online and really working to build out these more accessible internal data. That may impact when and how we build different dashboards. So it's a complex process, but those are two topics that we're currently working out.
Great. You and I have talked about this, and one of the things that I'm super excited about over time is the ability for us to use our dashboards in collaboration with another state agency's dashboard to tell an even different story. So individually, they tell their own story, but when you bring those two data sets together, that there's even more information to glean from that. And so I'm hopeful that we at some point get to that point, and appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I think this is also a good example of cross departmental collaboration. So I want to acknowledge, as you have done, all the work internally from all the different people who've helped pull this together, and really look forward to seeing where this takes us in the future. I would encourage everybody listening who are our staff, go in there, play around with this, look at it, use it. The only way that this is going to get better and more useful is if we're providing feedback to our research team about what we need, what we hope to gain from this, and over time it'll get even better. So Nick and Sarah, thank you very much. I look forward to, and Tyler, I don't know how much you've participated in this, but just want to acknowledge the entire research team for your work on this. So thank you.
Thank you, and I hope you feel better.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we are at the final agenda item, which is board member and executive assistant reports. Board member Garrett, anything to add today? All right. Well, Happy New Year to you. Haven't had an opportunity to wish you a Happy New Year. All right. Anything to add, Gretchen?
No, thank you, Chair Waldron.
Okay, well, I would just end with this one update, and that is we obviously have an open board member position, and I know that there's conversations with the incoming administration about filling that. We don't have any more detail than that, other than to say that it's in process. And I will say that once we have a third board member, we are anticipating going into an executive session and having conversations about our various meetings, our frequency of those meetings, the content of those meetings, etc. But we wanted to wait until we had a third board member on before we did that. So I just wanted to let people know that that conversation was happening and look forward to working with everybody in 2025. So with that, we are adjourned and we'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you.